Good morning, good afternoon, welcome everybody. We are here today to talk about the plastic crisis, how we can fix the broken system. And I am joined by Pablo Costa from Unilever. My name is Sian Sutherland, I'm co-founder of A Plastic Planet. Let's set the scene very quickly. Many of you will already know about the plastic crisis, but the reality is, the grim reality is that it is getting worse every single day. Plastic is everywhere. It's in the air that we breathe. It's in every glass of water that we take. It's 6 miles deep in the Mariana Trench. It's deep in the impacted ice of the Antarctica. We have infected our planet with plastic. So how are we going to fix this? At the moment, there's a lot of voluntary commitments. The sad news there, though, is that these voluntary commitments, even if they were successful, would result, according to the Pew Foundation report, in nothing more than a 7% reduction in plastic pollution by the year 2040. And we are set to treble plastic production. So what can we do about this? For sure, not one single organization or one individual or one NGO or charity are going to make the real difference in fixing the plastic crisis. I'm co-founder of A Plastic Planet, and we created an organization where we really wanted to see, is there an opportunity to work with business, to be pro-business, pro-solution, rather than talking about the problem. So we lobby governments on new laws, but we also work with industry to help with solutions. Because we believe that industry, myself as an entrepreneur, massive plastic sinner, we believe that industry can be an extraordinary tool for change, a tool for good. So I turn now to Pablo Costa, whose job, an enviable job, or maybe an unenviable job, is to drive the Unilever bus on this project. So you, as Global VP of Packaging, I know that it is your role, really, within Unilever to try and hit those very ambitious 2025 commitments. Pablo, can you tell us a little bit about your role now and give us a broad overview of what those 2025 commitments are?
Sure. Well, listen, it's a great pleasure to be here with you today, Sean. As you said, yes, I am responsible for driving these important commitments on plastic for Unilever. By background, I am not a packaging person. I've been in Unilever for 25 years, but it has only been about 8 years ago that I transitioned from working in formulation and product development to working packaging development. And that transition was mainly because I saw the opportunity to do something. Yeah, I saw the opportunity to start fixing what we call the broken system on plastic. It's a massive challenge, but I like challenges. That's why I decided to move into packaging. I did a bit of a change in career, and I've been working in packaging, as you said, for the last 8 years. Now I am the head of packaging for Unilever. I'm responsible of driving the commitments we have made around plastic. So which are those commitments? So we have 4 important commitments. The first one is we committed that by 2025, we will use at least 25% of recycled plastic in all the packaging we produce. So a quarter of the plastic we use will come from recycle. The second one is 100% of the packaging we produce will be recyclable, reusable, or compostable. The third commitment is about collection and processing. It's very, very important that we collect so we can get that material back so we can reuse it. So our commitment is we will ensure that we help to collect and process at least the same amount of plastic that we sell. And the last commitment, and perhaps the most important one and the most challenging one, and one of the most stretching in the industry, is we will reduce the amount of plastic we use by 50% by 2025. That is incredibly challenging. It's the most stretching in the industry. And on top of that, we said we will take out of our portfolio at least 100,000 tons of plastic. So that's in summary the commitments. But just to be clear, those are 2025 commitments that we are working really hard to deliver, but that's in a way the beginning of the journey. That's not the end of the journey.
No, of course not. But it's a massive first step. And as we know, the first step on any journey is the most important step. And as an organization that works with many industries, it really struck me when you came out with those 2025 commitments. They were very ambitious. And I think sometimes it's a benefit to come from a different part of the industry into your role, and because you can think in a different way. And that's what we need right now. We need mavericks. We need extraordinary thinkers who don't know the reasons why not sometimes. So I wonder if we pull back a little and think, you know, I love to always just work on outcomes. Where's the vision of where we want to get to? How do we paint that? If we had this beautiful virgin white piece of paper, Pablo, and you were thinking, okay, what is the vision that you personally would love to get to? What is that nirvana of a future where perhaps we don't have the 5 or 6 billion tons of waste that we humans create every single year right now?
Right, well, let me tell you what my dream is, because I always like starting with a dream, yeah, and then you bring it down to actions and mobilizing people. My dream is to get to a stage where we don't generate any waste. The problem, I always say, we need to be careful sometimes. We tend to demonize materials, you know, like plastic, but plastic is just a material. It's not plastic's fault, the crisis we're going through. The problem is the way we've been abusing of plastic over the years. And of course, we need to find a way out of this. So plastic is not helping. Now, my dream is to get to that stage where we are in a free waste world, where we don't generate any waste whatsoever. And the inspiration of that comes from looking back my childhood. I remember growing up with my grandmother and spending the summers with her and doing the shopping. And I remember back at the time, everything was refills. The cooking oil, even the wine, the milk, even the sparkling water was a refill. It was the same bottle we brought back to the shop. It got refilled and we kept reusing and reusing and reusing. And I remember in my childhood, the concept of waste didn't exist. There was no waste. Everything was reused. Everything had a second purpose, a third purpose, refills. So my dream is that. My dream is getting to a space where we stop generating waste altogether.
So how do we achieve that? How do we go from where we are right now? How can a huge organization like Unilever, you know, stepping up to this new level of responsibility now? What are the roadblocks in the way? How can we get there? How much importance do you place on collaboration? And I always look at it, and it's interesting that you're thinking, this is not a material problem. This is a production problem. This is a design problem.
Yeah.
This is a system problem.
Yeah.
So when we talk about things like refill, and you know, how can we take refill? Because I think that I buy something like, you know, my washing liquid or my floor cleaner in a very different way to how I buy something like personal care. You know, I buy personal care. It's a much more emotional purchase for me. So how do we take some of these ideas? Are they scalable? How can we get there faster?
Right. Well, there's quite a lot in there. Let me step back. So we have a simple model we put in place to start driving this, and we call it less, better, and now. The first thing we have to do is to ensure we use the minimum amount of plastic we need. And we've been working on this for a number of years, and we got to a good place. Then we look into better plastic. Within better plastics, 2 key elements. The first one is we have to ensure that everything we produce is recyclable. It can be recyclable. Within that, the role of recycled material, we call it PCR, post-consumer recycled material. We have to maximize the use of recycled material, and it plays a very important role. The reason is because every time we use recycled material, we stop using virgin plastic. So we believe the use of recycled material will play a very important role in using better plastic. And the last pillar of our model is no plastic, which is, it doesn't need an explanation. And it's about trying to find those solutions, those new materials that they don't pollute in the way that plastic does. And within that frame, we have a lot of opportunities. So no plastic, so it's my favorite area. It's the most challenging area, but we have some very good examples. For here we have the example of Love, Beauty and Planet. That is a shampoo bar. Yeah. So as you can see already, great initiative, but it is very different to the kind of shampoo we are used to. That's not a liquid anymore. Now we're talking about a bar. The way in which we are approaching this is from the material perspective, but we also know there will be some implication in terms of, do we need to rethink our product? Do we need to rethink our propositions? Because sometimes just trying to find an alternative to plastic is very, very different. So we are looking this in a way, in a holistic way. We look at the problem as a whole and trying to find different ways of bringing the solution.
what I love about some of these examples are, I think we depend on packaging to do the entire job. And in my role of working on solutions with different companies, my first thing is always, why don't you involve designers at the very beginning and say, like the shampoo bar, why does it always have to be a liquid? Why do we not look at formulas sometimes in a little more detail at the very beginning of the process, the design time of the process? That's where we can turn off the plastic tap. So how can we deliver the benefits of products without always having to revert to plastic, because you need to have a water-resistant bit of packaging in the first place. So I love this example, and it's been wonderful to see, the adoption of shampoo bars, because instead of thinking, what's a new kind of material because we need a waterproof bottle, we're thinking, how do we change the product? And going back to the product, which is where I see Unilever has enormous power, you can reformulate things in a slightly different way. And we, as the shopper, I believe we will adapt so quickly, because if suddenly the world said all shampoos are going to be in bar form, then we would buy shampoo bars. Because I feel very strongly the consumer buys what they are sold. It's industry's job to sell them something different. And of course, it's government's job that mandate the industry move quicker. So for me, this project, for example, having worked with Unilever over the last couple of years on the Dove refillable, for me, what I love about this is it's like a 360-degree innovation of not just the material, but the delivery system, the fact it's guaranteed for life, the beauty of it. I love how Unilever with this elevated sustainability from this kind of knitted armpit, hairy sandal world into something that is really beautiful, feels great in your hand. So these examples for me are really interesting. I mean, obviously, my view on PCR. Is it the final answer? I think we both agree it's probably not the final answer. This is actually reformulating a product so that you don't need the plastic at all.
Precisely.
How wonderful is this? And the fact that you can have something which is such a beautiful example of refill. Which of these do you see is going to be a major part of the final solution? Do you think that refill in personal care can really work?
Well, that's a million-dollar question. But you can start to see here there is a theme emerging, which is there is no silver bullet. And we need to find, we are working on a range of solutions, different ways we can start finding a solution to the problem. So what you mentioned about the Dove deodorant refill, that is part of what is our refill program. We have the eco refill. That's another slightly different consumer experience where consumers will buy a product which is 10 times concentrated. They will take it home, they will dilute, and that represents a saving of 75% plastic. And you will say, well, that's not the end destination, still contains plastic. But again, that's part of that journey, how we get there, how we start making progress, moving toward much bolder and bigger solutions, ultimately plastic-free. When it comes to PCR, again, I do believe PCR plays a very, very important role in the transition stage. Because as I said at the beginning, every time we use recycled material, we're stopping that material to potentially go into landfills, go into the ocean, and more importantly, we're stopping the production of virgin plastic. Hellmann's by itself, by alone, uses 14,000 tons of plastic. And in our science and technology team, we are looking into technologies, how we can keep that plastic in the system for much longer, how we can keep recycled that plastic beyond the norm that could be 4-6 times, which is what it can be recycled without having any problems, keep it much, much longer, and eventually get into state we can recycle that material forever, as it happened with aluminum, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some materials, sometimes we don't need to reinvent a material, do we? Sometimes it's there already and it just hasn't maybe had the love, because plastic has been so extraordinary. Who knew man could invent a material that exists almost forever? And how crazy of us that instead of putting it on a pedestal and treating it with respect and pricing it like gold and using it for things that we want to last for 500 years, we've misused it. We've used it for things like packaging that are in their very nature temporal. They're just the thing to deliver the product to us.
Absolutely. And I want to build on that because I always said that plastic strength is its biggest weakness. It's such an amazing material in terms of the properties. It can be reused many times. It lasts for a long time. It provides, in packaging, structural integrity to the packaging. It provides protection to our products. It allows us to get the products in a safe way with the right quality to our consumers. It's an amazing material. It's so good that we got lazy. We got very, very lazy trying to find other alternatives. I'm usually asked, what is a material that will replace plastic? Well, I don't have a crystal ball. It's very difficult to say. Today, it doesn't exist. There is no material that you can say, I will switch it. There is no simple solution. When you look at other solutions, metal, glass, they have also the downside. They have some negative implications. The amount of energy it takes to produce them, so on and so forth. So there is no magic solution. For me, what we need to put a lot of attention and energy is what is the right combination of materials. Because until now, plastic by itself does everything. It provides integrity, it's easy to manage, good quality, safety, everything in one material. Well, perhaps we will not easily find that material that will be replacing plastic like for like, but will be through combination of materials. We talk about paper and cardboard very often. It's an amazing material. You touched on this at the beginning. Most of the beauty and personal care products, for example, contain water, most of them. Therefore, cardboard doesn't work because cardboard and water, they don't go well together. So we need to start finding the way of combining cardboard with something else without interfering with the recycling. So cardboard combination with other materials will be very, very important so we can start using it at the scale. By itself, today it doesn't represent the solution we need.
So Pablo, where do you see the opportunities, the accelerants, and the roadblocks? So when we look at sachets, for example, in the UK there is news recently that sachets, plastic sachets, may be banned. This would be the first country in the world to do such. Is that something that you at Unilever would welcome? Because it accelerates innovation, it creates a level playing field. It means that all industries have to change. It goes beyond it being a voluntary level of commitment.
Yeah.
Do you see that there is a role for more taxation, more policy changes in such way? Where are the roadblocks that you encounter every day that stop us getting to that nirvana of zero waste?
Okay, well, that's a great question. Let me start saying what we need collaboration. It's very, very clear that we cannot do this by ourselves. Nobody can. There is no company, nobody in the world that can find a solution to this by themselves. It has to be through collaboration. And this is one of the reasons why we are part of 70 companies that are supportive of having a treaty on plastics. And we are asking the United Nations to bring this treaty forward as quick as possible. So that's super important. The role of taxations, EPR schemes, absolutely, they will play a very, very important role. They need to be implemented in the right way in order to favor the use of recycled material, more sustainable solutions. So that's very important, the way they are executed. We are aware of the plans in the UK about plastic ban. We are very keen to continue working and collaborate with the UK government. We need to find a way of bringing this to life in the right way, while we continue giving our consumers the product with the quality and the safety which is required. So we need to think carefully on how we transition to that. When it comes to sachets, this is an area that you have a big passion to find a solution. So do we. It's an area we are investing heavily. This is a business for us is quite big in developing countries, in developing markets like South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the reason is because people in those markets cannot afford buying large quantities of product. The only way they can have access to nutritional hygiene product is through small quantities, and sachet is serving that purpose. So transitioning to sustainable solution is a priority for us. But I just want to be clear, that's the role that sachets play in those markets. So we need to find the way of transition into those more sustainable solutions, but continue to giving our consumers the products that are so important for their daily life.
I completely understand. I think our passion, really, the fire in our belly about the sachets is the symbolism of the sachet, that it is the epitome of that kind of single dose, single use. And obviously through the pandemic, I mean, we were producing nearly 1 trillion plastic sachets globally, not just Unilever, but everybody, every single year. And they are basically unrecyclable, they're valueless. And it was the symbolism of the sachet that somehow had snuck under the radar of all the little items like the straw and the cotton bud. And also I know that when things like a sachet ban, if that was looming, then innovation would happen. And sometimes industry needs that little prod because everybody is incredibly busy with their day jobs. And to suddenly reinvent a sachet, when there's the impetus of they're going to be banned, so we need to find an alternative very quickly now. And I think if we can crack the sachet in things like ketchup and condiments and washing powder, then it also means that we will see not just material change, but we'll see systemic change. And I wonder if you could agree with me that perhaps the whole plastic crisis has been a little tap on the shoulder of humanity to say, you've gone down a cul-de-sac here, you've gone down the wrong road. And could it be the catalyst for us all to slightly rethink how we take, make, and waste currently? Could it be the catalyst where we look at that more systemic change? And we talk about refill as one of the ultimate answers, where you have permanent packaging, that we know nothing is going to hit the bin, whatever material it's in.
Exactly.
And perhaps the plastic crisis has been that tap on the shoulder for us. Do you think that could be so?
Well, definitely. And I like to think that beyond any regulations or bans, we need to proactively find solutions. Yeah, we need to look for solutions. I'm not waiting for any ban or anything to invest, to put energy. So let me give you an example. We recently created in Unilever a new organization that's called Packaging Science and Technology Organization. We have top 10 scientists, material scientists, and this organization is 100% focused on finding what are those future solutions that will allow us to move away from sachets. We have an amazing technology. Just to give you, I can't talk about a lot about the details, but we have this amazing new technology where we have paper and we apply a coating, which is the layer of coating, which is the thickness of an atom. It's so thin that you cannot see it, you cannot touch it, you cannot feel it. It's almost like it's not there, but it changes the properties of the paper in a way you can then start putting liquids in contact with paper, and the paper will still perform and work in the way it has to. So that's one example only, but we are really investing a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources trying to find those future solutions, because I agree with you, we need to get out of the plastic. So this is where our energy and our passion is.
Great. We talked about the UN Global Plastics Treaty and the imperative that I think all industries feel that we need this. And I'm very conscious, I said on the Stewardship Council of the Global Treaty Dialogues that I know Unilever are very involved in too. And it's wonderful to me, actually, to see activists and industry coming together to find points of potential collaboration and cohesion so that we could accelerate the whole UN treaty process, because we don't have 10 years, do we? In order to create the framework for a new treaty, we need to work faster on that. And so there is a new level, I think, of collaboration needed. It's needed between governments, but it's mainly needed between industries. And do you have any examples, perhaps, of new collaborations, perhaps unusual collaborations, when we live in a world that is always driven by competitive advantage? Are there any collaborations that you are witnessing within Unilever that you thought, isn't that great that we're coming together, we're holding hands here?
Absolutely. Let me start saying about the treaty. Super important we pull this through. The treaty will play a very important role in creating that level playing field where everyone will have to play with the same rules, and that will really help everyone in finding a solution. It has to be legally binding, that's super important, and it needs to help us to start reducing the amount of plastic that can be produced annually. On the collaboration point, I keep coming back to the same point. We cannot do this alone. We need to collaborate, and we are very willing to collaborate with everyone, with NGOs, activists like yourself. We've been working together with our peers, with our competitors, with our people that historically have been our suppliers and our partners, but we need to expand that. We have some interesting work happening, taking place at the moment with academia, where we are working with scientists in novel materials, novel solutions, University of Liverpool and different universities, things that we haven't done so much in the past. In the packaging space, we have done it for chemicals, not in packaging. That's very interesting. And another space that I have a big passion personally is in the area of refills. And that is a new space for us. Yeah? 5 years ago, we didn't do refills in the stores, nothing. At the moment, we have 28 different kind of pilots, experiments, let's call them, happening in the marketplace on refills in stores, and that is through a different number of partners we're working. Those are new partnerships. Relationships in the past didn't exist, and as I said before, we have quite a few of them. They're quite different. This is example we have in us in the UK, the refill for our Persil laundry detergent. We did it in one store with us. It worked really well, so now we have plans to continue expanding that. Now, what we have realized and learned through the refill trials we have done is we don't believe there will be one solution that fits all. Yeah, so we might end up in a situation where we need to use different models for different markets, for different products. But again, can you imagine in the future every single product having a different refill station and store? That will not work in practical terms. And the collaboration in that space, how we come together as an industry and how we get our heads together to find a solution for that will be critical for the success of refill. That, in my opinion, will play a very important role in helping us to reduce the amount of plastic we use.
Well, I think this conversation for me has really confirmed my absolute belief that industry is the tool of change. You know, that we can't wait for this mythical ethical consumer to rise up in such volumes that force governments to really draft new laws. Industry is the most important part of this whole equation to me, because they have the technology, hopefully they have the funding, they have the people, and now I believe that they have the drive to actually make this change happen. So it's been such a pleasure, Pablo, to speak to you today and hear everything that Unilever are doing. And I think the final call to action perhaps is for collaboration. You know, people say to me often, so what can I do? You know, what can I do as an individual? You know, I have my reusable cup and I never take another plastic bag again in my life. And I always say to them, that isn't where your power is. Your power is what you do at your place of work.
Exactly.
Because this is where we can really, create great change. So it's great to see an industry, of the might of Unilever that is so committed to making true change happen. I wish you great success.
And it will be through collaboration. So we invite people, we invite our peers to work together with us to find those solutions. Because as I said at the beginning, we need to do it together.
Yeah, we need to hold hands and jump together.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.